I'm out in the garden on a Sunday evening looking around for some of the plants that we're going to move at the moment, because that's something that myself and Ross do a lot of in January and February, and sometimes even into March. And I'm sure you're laughing at us going, and the people who know us will be thinking, oh God, it's so them that we just don't stop. Ross and I, in our 11, 12 years together running commercial tincture producing company and everything else, we don't stop, and we love it. We actually love the work. So yeah, and we love being with the plants. So yeah, it doesn't stop. We're always thinking about them. But I'm moving plants at the moment, and that is something that I would have written about in our last newsletter. I spoke about moving plants in general in our newsletter, and also some people had signed up for a newsletter that's more based on growing, if you're interested in growing medicinal plants and learning about that. And I actually went in depth into that on how to grow certain plants like skullcap commercially. And that's really important, because a lot of our plants this time of year, people overlook this kind of work that you need to do with them, and it is that you need to split them, you need to move them, and for their own health. So if you really want to use these plants as medicines, that's what you need to do. So whether it's for your own clinical practice as a herbalist, or whether it's just for your own family, yeah, it's absolutely necessary for the health of some of these plants like skullcap that you actually do split the plants. So I've just been going around picking out some herbs from the garden that need to be moved and need to be split. And the reason is because we are finishing our building over by the woodland, another part of the woodland, and when we're not covered in hemp and lime and plaster and earth and sand and just moving buckets loads of stuff and wheelbarrow loads of stuff, what we're doing is obviously continuing our herb nursery work, and we're planting in loads of new gardens over there right now. So I'm actually digging up a lot of plants at the moment and moving them, and it's something that I find people are really afraid to do. They've always said it to us, like, oh, you know, my lemon balm's not happy, or my whatever's not happy. What should I do? I'm like, move it, you know. And I remember this beautiful Druid couple who are growing plants for their own Druidic practices, and they were really upset about this one wormwood that wasn't happy in the garden. And I was like, well, just move it, you know. And it's something that people don't think about. It's like, oh, they said, you know, can we move it? I'm like, absolutely, move it. So plants do sometimes like to be moved. They're not always in the right position. So we move plants constantly, and this is the time we do it. So that's what I was talking about in our last newsletter, was about moving different plants and how to split their roots. So we're doing a lot of that at the moment. We're digging up massive plants and we're moving them, and some of it is for their own health, and some of it is because we're creating all these new gardens at the moment here at Ivywood. So this is a plant that's very close to my heart, that I've just dug up and that is being moved. And this plant's probably only about 2 or 3 years old. It's a mugwort, so Artemisia vulgaris, which seems to be a very popular plant amongst people, and it's definitely one of my most beloved. And I'm sure on the website there's a video from probably 10 or 12 years ago that I did on mugwort, and since then loads has happened. We've had 3 babies, we've moved, loads has happened, and my relationship to this plant has grown much like your relationship with anyone, like any creature or any human might do over the span of 10 or 12 years. It's grown and it's deepened. So this is a mugwort that's probably only 2 or 3 years old and was a self-seeder, can you believe it, about 2 or 3 years ago. So that's how big your mugwort plant will get. When people buy plants from us from the nursery, they may only be in 9 centimeter pots, and yeah, within a couple of years they can be like this big. And behind me here is some other mugworts. Some of our mother mugworts, or the mugworts that we actually do take all over the plants that we sell from the nursery, come from this bunch of mugworts here behind me. And they're, I don't know how old they are, they're very, very old. We moved them from our old farm in Sligo. So yeah, I've just dug up this mugwort. It's going to be moved into the new gardens, and yeah, it's going to be split as well. So splitting plants is kind of individual for the plant. So you do need to know some of these things, and they're quite specific for each plant. So it's not always obvious. This is a plant where it's really obvious, and a plant that most people know about is skullcap. So this is a skullcap that actually was in a 2-litre pot in the nursery, and it's really obvious how you can simply divide and split this plant. But the one thing people overlook about growing skullcap, whether it's for yourself or whether it's on a massive commercial scale, which we've done in fields and fields of skullcap, you actually need to dig up your skullcap plants, and you need to divide them, and you need to spread them about for their own health. So that's really, really important. So that's a lot of what people overlook with medicinal plants, is that they actually need this kind of care to thrive. So yeah, this is a more obvious one where you can easily split apart your skullcap and you can spread it around, and it needs that. This plant won't be happy here, or even if this skullcap is in the ground, like we grow a lot of skullcap in the ground because we use it a lot in our clinical practice, it won't be happy left like this, and it won't thrive the next year round. So you actually do need to know how to look after these plants. So this is a plant that I'm digging up here, and I'm just walking around picking out other plants, because plants do get swamped in a space when they're planted in. And I'm just looking at some echinaceas over there, and a lot of lemon balms. It has to be split, like they absolutely have to split. There's loads of feverfews, and there's loads of marrow roots over there that have to be split up, and loads of stachys, and loads of salvia militarizas, and the Chinese plant that we grow a lot of, and culver's root. Like they all need to be dug up and split and then moved. So that's what I'm going to be doing. And a little bit late in the season, we tend to like to do our digging up and moving in February, but there's still a bit of time. So if you do have plants in the ground and you think they're not happy, or you want to make more of them, then absolutely dig them up now, while there's only a little bit of growth in them and there's minimal problem to the plant when you're doing that now, because this is probably your last week that you want to be doing that. Yeah, so that's just a little bit on a Sunday evening from Ivywood. I'm just listening to the bird song here. It's gorgeous.